Tonight, right before you go to bed, you're going to walk into your bathroom and perform like a really bizarre little ritual.
Oh, yeah. Every single night.
Right. You're going to grab this plastic stick with nylon bristles, squeeze this colorful, mint-scented chemical log onto it, and just shove it into your mouth, foam it all up, and spit it out.
And you just do it on autopilot.
Exactly. We all do. We don't even think about the texture.
Yeah.
Unless maybe you remember being a kid and secretly swallowing that, sparkly bubblegum training paste.
Which is a very specific flavor, by the way.
Oh, it really is. But it's just such a universally mundane part of being human today. The thing is, though, if you look back at the history of this exact ritual, it wasn't always this minty breeze. It used to be genuinely brutal.
Brutal is almost an understatement, honestly. For most of human history, oral care was basically sheer, violent, mechanical abrasion.
It's terrifying.
It really is. We were treating our mouths like cast iron skillets that had, crust baked onto them.
I was looking through the sources we pulled for this deep dive, and the sheer grit of it literally made my teeth hurt. I mean, in 5000 BC, the ancient Egyptians were scrubbing their teeth with a mixture of crushed eggshells, pumice, ash, and myrrh.
And no nylon bristles back then, obviously.
Right, no bristles. They were just using their bare fingers to grind this abrasive, sandy powder straight into their gums.
Which is, it's incredibly destructive to the enamel over time, but it wasn't an isolated practice at all. The ancient Greeks and Romans took that concept and somehow made it worse.
Okay.
They were actively using crushed bones and oyster shells to scour their teeth.
Crushed bones. Just imagine the sensory nightmare of rubbing bone shards against your own teeth.
No, thank you.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And we didn't get much smarter as time went on either. Fast forward to like the 1780s in England, and you had people literally scrubbing their teeth with burnt breadcrumbs.
Just carbonized bread. It's wild.
It is wild to think about the evolution of this daily chore. Which brings us to what we're exploring today. Welcome to the Deep Dive Lab.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're unraveling the hidden science of your smile. Because here is the central mystery we want to figure out. And it's a strange question. Why do our teeth actually dissolve in our mouths? And how did a simple squeeze of paste eventually figure out how to stop it?
It is a phenomenal scientific journey. Because over the last century, researchers went from treating teeth like dirty dishes that just needed to be scoured harder to developing biomimetic smart materials.
Smart materials.
Yeah, materials that literally rebuild human enamel at the molecular level in real time. But to really appreciate that leap, we have to look at the invisible war happening inside your mouth right now.
Okay, lay it out for us.
There is this constant tug of war that scientists call the demineralization-remineralization cycle. I think most of us picture our teeth as these static, permanent little rocks.
Right, like they're just hard white stones in your jaw.
Exactly, but that's the biggest misconception. Your mouth is a highly dynamic environment, and your teeth are an active part of that ecosystem. The outer layer of your tooth, the enamel, it's composed almost entirely of a crystalline mineral called hydroxyapatite.
Hydroxyapatite.
Right.
Correct.
It's basically a highly structured lattice of calcium and phosphate.
Got it.
Yay.
And sharing that space with your hydroxyapatite is a massive population of bacteria living in the plaque, right?
Oh, billions of them.
Right. And when you eat, especially if you're eating sugars or fermentable carbohydrates, those bacteria have an absolute feast. And as a byproduct of their digestion, they excrete acid.
And this brings us to a foundational threshold in dental science. It's known as the critical pH.
Critical pH. What does that mean exactly?
So when those bacteria feast and produce acid, the pH environment of your mouth plummets. The moment it drops below 5.5, the environment becomes so acidic that the crystal lattice of your tooth can no longer hold itself together.
Oh, wow. It just breaks down.
It literally begins to dissolve. The calcium and phosphate ions are pulled out of the enamel and they just drift away into your saliva.
Yeah.
That is demineralization.
So under an acidic attack, your teeth are essentially melting into your spit.
That is exactly what is happening at a microscopic level, yeah. But fortunately, your body has a built-in countermeasure.
Okay.
When the pH eventually neutralizes, which happens naturally thanks to, the buffering action of your saliva, those calcium and phosphate ions that were floating around in your mouth can actually recrystallize.
They just pop back in.
Exactly. They bond right back into the tooth structure.
Yeah.
That is remineralization. So the entire pathology of cavities, or caries, comes down to a simple math problem.
Dissolving versus rebuilding.
Exactly. Cavities form when the rate of dissolving outpaces the rate of rebuilding.
But for thousands of years, people had absolutely no concept of this microscopic chemical math. They just looked in the mirror, saw decay and discoloration, and thought, my teeth are dirty, I need to scrub harder.
Right. The prevailing theory was entirely focused on aggressive physical cleaning.
Which explains some of the wilder historical solutions in our notes.
Yeah.
In 1824, a dentist named Dr. Peabody decided the best way to clean teeth was to add soap to tooth powders.
Just straight up soap.
Just straight up sudsy soap to act as a surfactant. And then by the 1850s, chalk became the go-to abrasive.
Because they were just trying to emulsify the debris and physically scrape the plaque away.
Right. But it feels like having a crumbling brick wall where the water's dissolving away and deciding the best way to fix it is to just aggressively power wash the bricks.
You might blast the dirt off the surface, sure.
But the bricks are still falling out. You're doing absolutely nothing to stop the wall from collapsing. So mechanical scrubbing just wasn't enough to stop the microscopic acid attacks.
No, it wasn't.
So how did scientists figure this out? How do we actually change the chemistry of the tooth itself to make it resistant to the acid? This is where the story gets really interesting.
It really does. That realization sparked a massive turning point in 1914 with the integration of fluoride into toothpaste formulations.
Okay.
This was the exact moment toothpaste transitioned from being a cosmetic, soapy abrasive into a genuine therapeutic delivery system.
Okay, I want to pause and push back here for a second. We hear about fluoride constantly. It's in our municipal water. It's in almost every major toothpaste.
Right.
But there's also an entire aisle at the grocery store proudly marketing itself as fluoride-free. So if fluoride is this undisputed gold standard that stops the brick wall from crumbling, why is there a debate? What is it actually doing chemically that makes it so vital?
It's a great question. And setting aside the cultural debates, the pure chemistry of what fluoride does is incredibly elegant. Think back to that hydroxyapatite crystal we mentioned, the natural calcium and phosphate structure of your enamel.
Right, the lattice.
Exactly. That lattice also contains hydroxyl groups. When fluoride ions are introduced into your saliva during that rebuilding phase, they don't just sit on the surface, they actually replace the hydroxyl groups inside the crystal lattice.
Well, they swap out the pieces.
Right, so you are no longer just rebuilding standard hydroxyapatite. You are forging a new upgraded armor called fluorapatite.
Upgraded in what way, though? Why does replacing that one microscopic group matter so much?
Because of that critical pH threshold we talked about. Regular natural tooth enamel dissolves when the mouth's pH hits 5.5.
Okay.
But fluorapatite is fundamentally more acid resistant. It won't start dissolving until the pH drops all the way down to 4.5.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you are exponentially lowering the vulnerability of the tooth itself.
So basically giving the enamel a heavy-duty shield, it can take a much heavier, more acidic beating before it even begins to take damage.
Precisely. But there is a secondary, almost stealth-like mechanism to fluoride that often gets overlooked. It actually sabotages the bacteria's ability to produce acid in the first place.
Wait, really? How does it do that?
Well, when the mouth gets acidic, fluoride can slip across the bacterial cell wall in the form of hydrogen fluoride. And once it's inside the bacteria, it breaks apart and inhibits a crucial bacterial enzyme called enolase.
Enolase, okay.
And without enolase, the bacteria simply cannot manufacture more acid.
That is brilliant. It fortifies the shield and jams the enemy's weapons simultaneously.
Exactly.
But science never stops at the gold standard, right? Eventually, researchers asked the next logical question. Instead of relying on chemical reaction to forge new armor, what if we could just directly spackle the microscopic cracks in the tooth with natural bioidentical materials?
And that pursuit brings us to the era of space-age biomimetics. It's a shift toward a material called nanohydroxyapatite, or NHAP.
The origin story of this material is like something out of a sci-fi movie. It wasn't cooked up in a standard dental lab.
Yeah.
It was actually developed by NASA in the 1970s.
Yep, the space program.
Right. Because when astronauts spend extended time in zero gravity, they obviously lose bone density, but they also suffer significant enamel density loss.
Yeah.
NASA needed a way to repair their astronauts' teeth without the aid of gravity.
Right, and because tooth enamel is already 97% hydroxyapatite, NASA researchers simply synthesized nano-sized particles of that exact same mineral, and the scale here is crucial.
How small are we talking?
These particles are incredibly tiny, between 20 and 80 nanometers. Because they are so small, they can physically wedge themselves into the microscopic fissures and tubules of the tooth.
They're just jamming themselves in there.
Exactly. They don't need a complex chemical exchange to occur. They directly bind to the surface and physically fill in the microscopic holes.
And the clinical data on this is what really caught my attention in the research. The expert consensus is shifting. There was a major 2023 trial led by Dr. Christopher Tolmie.
Yes, Tolmie's trial was quite revealing. They found that a 10% nanohydroxyapatite toothpaste protected adult teeth from new cavities just as effectively as a standard 1,450 ppm fluoride paste.
That's huge.
It is. It literally acts as a direct bioidentical mineral replacement.
It's a perfect example of biomimicry. You're just using the body's own building blocks to patch the potholes. But even with these nanoparticles, there's a practical timing flaw, right?
What do you mean?
Well, I brush my teeth at 7 a.m. for 2 minutes. But I am eating, drinking coffee, and producing acid for the next 16 hours. How does a 2-minute brush protect me against a 2 a.m. sports drink?
That exact dilemma, the timing of the acid attack researchers to develop one of the most fascinating advancements in the field, bioactive glass.
I have to admit, when I read glass in your toothpaste, it sounded terrifying.
Yeah.
It sounds like the crushed bone and oyster shell era all over again.
I know, it sounds abrasive, but it's actually a highly sophisticated, patented Halide bioglass. We have some great data from a prominent clinical trial conducted at the Forsyth Institute, led by Dr. Hatties Hasturk. They demonstrated the efficacy of a specific bioglass technology called the Sensi IP, which is closely related to another product called Biomin. These aren't shards of glass, they're extra fine microscopic particles composed of a silica matrix that contains calcium, phosphate, and fluoride.
Yeah, the way this functions inside the mouth is almost robotic. When you brush, these microscopic glass spheres actually adhere to the surface of your enamel. They stick there even after you strip and rinse.
Right, they anchor themselves and undergo a slow, controlled dissolution process that lasts up to 12 hours.
12 hours?
Yes, but the truly revolutionary aspect is that this is a smart material. It physically reacts to the changing pH of your saliva.
So bring it back to that 2.0 BM sports drink.
Yeah.
Take a sip. It's loaded with sugar and citric acid. The pH in your mouth plummets.
And the bioactive glass instantly senses that acidic drop. In response to the acid, the glass matrix actually degrades faster, releasing a concentrated burst of neutralizing calcium, phosphate, and fluoride exactly at the moment your teeth are most vulnerable to melting.
That is wild. It's basically a microscopic medic stationed directly on your tooth, quietly waiting for an attack and deploying armor the second it senses danger.
That's a great analogy.
It's incredible. And this whole pivot toward smarter, targeted science perfectly tees up another massive revelation from our sources: the shift in how we treat the oral microbiome.
This is perhaps the most profound philosophical shift in oral care. For decades, the mainstream approach to oral hygiene was essentially germicidal. The goal was to just nuke the mouth.
Oh, absolutely. If you think back to the mouthwashes of the 90s, the entire marketing strategy was about the pain. You know, feeling the burn means it's working.
Oh, yeah, people loved the burn.
We wanted to kill 99.9% of bacteria and leave the mouth completely scorched and sterile. We were using harsh detergents and intense antimicrobials to just wipe the slate clean.
The problem with that scorched earth approach is that the mouth is a highly intricate microbiome. When you nuke the environment, you aren't just killing the acid-producing pathogens, you're wiping out highly beneficial bacteria that naturally protect you. The modern scientific goal is no longer sterilization. The goal is eubiosis, maintaining a healthy, balanced microbial ecosystem.
And there's a fantastic study in our stack by Adams and colleagues, published in the journal Scientific Reports. They investigated toothpastes that entirely ditched the harsh antimicrobials.
Right, they went a completely different route.
Yeah, instead, these pastes use specific enzymes like amyloglucosidase and glucose oxidase, along with natural salivary proteins.
And the findings were a paradigm shift. Adams and his team found that these specific ingredients actually hypercharge the natural defense mechanisms of our own saliva.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they actively suppress the pathogenic acid-producing bacteria while creating an environment that allows the helpful commensal bacteria to thrive.
You know what it's like? It's like realizing your garden has weeds, and instead of dropping a chemical bomb that kills the weeds, the flowers, and the soil,
Right.
you're hiring a team of microscopic gardeners. And their only job is to carefully pull out the weeds while fertilizing the healthy soil.
That is the perfect way to visualize it. We are moving away from brute force and moving towards sophisticated biological management.
So inside the actual paste, we have this incredible renaissance of targeted science. We have biomimetic minerals patching holes, smart glass deploying armor, and enzymatic gardeners curating the microbiome.
It's pretty amazing.
Which makes the next point in our research so incredibly frustrating. Because if you turn around a standard tube of toothpaste and read the ingredient list, there are compounds in there that have absolutely nothing to do with fighting cavities.
You are talking about the aesthetic additives, and the most debated one right now is titanium dioxide. If you look at an ingredient label, you will often see it listed under its cosmetic color index number, CI 77891.
Okay, so just to be unequivocally clear for anyone listening, does titanium dioxide strengthen my enamel, fight bacteria, or improve my dental health in any way?
It does absolutely nothing for your dental health. Zero.
Zero.
It is an inorganic white mineral pigment. Its sole function is to make the toothpaste look bright, opaque, and aesthetically pleasing when you squeeze it out. It's literally just there to look clean.
So we are putting a chemical in our mouths simply because we've been culturally conditioned by old commercials to think that toothpaste must be blindingly white.
Pretty much.
And this specific pigment is causing some serious regulatory friction globally.
It is a fascinating case study in international safety standards, because the safety of titanium dioxide is currently being viewed through two deeply contrasting regulatory lenses.
Right.
In the United States, the FDA permits the use of titanium dioxide in cosmetics and food up to 1%. Their risk assessment is based on the premise that exposure is low, primarily because toothpaste is a rinse-off product.
You just spit it out.
Exactly. The assumption is that you brush and then you spit it out, so systemic ingestion is minimal.
But the European Union looked at the exact same nanoparticle and came to a very different conclusion.
Radically different. In 2022, the EU officially banned titanium dioxide as a food additive altogether, where it was labeled as E171.
Wow, completely banned in food.
Yeah, their scientific panels reviewed the data and concluded that they could not definitively rule out genotoxicity, meaning they couldn't guarantee that the long-term accumulation of these nanoparticles wouldn't damage human DNA.
And while it's technically still allowed in EU cosmetics, the EU Scientific Committee on Consumer Safety, the SCCS, is actively scrutinizing its use in oral cosmetics like toothpaste. And their main concern really highlights the flaw in the FDA's just spit it out logic.
Exactly. The vulnerability lies with children. An adult might effectively rinse and spit, but young children inherently swallow a significant portion of the toothpaste foam while they are learning to brush.
I find this deeply absurd. I am pushing back against the whole industry norm here. We are taking on a potential health risk, one that European regulators deem serious enough to ban in food, and we are exposing ourselves and our kids to it for literally no medical benefit, just so the paste looks pretty on the bristles.
It really forces consumers to question what they prioritize in everyday products. Now, as analysts, we aren't endorsing one regulatory body over the other. The FDA stands by its safety thresholds, while the EU applies a much stricter precautionary principle.
Sure.
However, what is undeniable is the market's reaction. Consumer awareness is a powerful force. Because people are learning about this, the industry is voluntarily pivoting. Major global brands are quietly reformulating their products to create titanium dioxide-free, clean-label pastes just to avoid the controversy and meet the demand for cleaner ingredients.
It's proof that when consumers wake up to what's actually inside the product, the industry has to adapt. And if consumers are waking up to the chemistry inside the tube, it forces a reckoning with an even bigger, more tangible environmental hazard. The tube itself.
Oh, the packaging is its own massive scientific nightmare.
Because it's a staggering infrastructural issue. Historically, the global population runs through roughly 20 billion toothpaste tubes every single year.
20 billion. And until very recently, almost every single one of those tubes was entirely unrecyclable. They were just 20 billion pieces of forever trash.
The problem was the material engineering, right?
Yeah.
To give you that satisfying, squeezy feel while protecting the flavor and the active ingredients, traditional tubes were made of mixed materials.
Right.
They were constructed from several different types of plastic sandwiched together, often wrapped around a micro-thin, flexible layer of aluminum.
And from a recycling standpoint, that is a disaster. You physically cannot separate the aluminum from the plastic layers at a recycling plant. If you optimistically threw your old tube in the blue bin, the sorting machines would just reject it, and it went straight to a landfill.
Recognizing the scale of this waste, Colgate-Palmolive decided to tackle the engineering hurdle. But they had a massive constraint. They needed a material that was already universally accepted by existing recycling streams, but it still had to function perfectly as a toothpaste tube.
Which is harder than it sounds. You can't just use PD plastic, the stuff your clear water bottles are made of, because this doesn't have a deadfold. It's too crinkly. It feels like you're squeezing a thin bottle, not a malleable tube.
Right. So their engineers turned to high-density polyethylene, or HDPE. This is the no-2 plastic. It's universally recycled.
But the catch is that HDPE is naturally very rigid. It's the plastic used to make stiff milk jugs and heavy detergent bottles. The industry assumed it was entirely unsuitable for something you need to gently squeeze.
But the engineers at Colgate spent 5 years trying to bend the rules of this plastic. 5 years of trial and error.
Wow, 5 years on just the tube.
Yeah, and they eventually figured out how to layer multiple different grades and thicknesses of HDPE laminate into a single tube. It protects the fluoride, it survives the high-speed factory filling machines, and crucially, you can comfortably squeeze the toothpaste out.
It was a monumental achievement, actually officially recognized by the Association of Plastic Recyclers. They rigorously tested it and verified that these new HDPE tubes could be successfully ground up and remanufactured into new plastic products.
But here is the absolute best part of this story, and honestly a wild move for a major corporation. Colgate realized that having the world's only recyclable tube was actually useless.
Why is that?
Because if they were the only ones doing it, local recycling facilities still wouldn't accept them. The human sorters and the optical scanners wouldn't be able to tell the one good tube apart from the 19 billion bad tubes. So Colgate did something unheard of.
They open-sourced their patented technologies. They freely shared the engineering specifications and the manufacturing blueprints with all of their competitors across the industry.
They looked at the market and basically said, we will fight you tooth and nail over the chemistry inside the tube, but the tube itself needs to be a universal standard. And because they removed the intellectual property barrier, nearly 90% of the U.S. toothpaste market has committed to transitioning to these recyclable HDPE tubes by 2025.
It's a profound example of how collaborative engineering and open-source thinking can literally alter an entire global supply chain to support a circular economy.
It really is a triumph of collective problem solving. So let's step back and summarize the journey we've been on today.
Sure.
First, we have to stop thinking of our teeth as static rocks. The mouth is a dynamic living ecosystem constantly losing and gaining minerals.
Absolutely.
Second, the science of protection has evolved light years beyond its origins. We went from the brutal mechanical abrasion of crushed bones to the chemical armor of fluoride to the era of smart biomimetic materials like NASA's nanohydroxyapatite patching holes and 12-hour bioactive glass acting as microscopic medics. And finally, driven by consumer awareness, we are cleaning up the aesthetic chemicals inside, while the packaging itself finally joins the circular economy.
You know, if we are looking for the big picture insight from all of this, it's that our understanding of human biology has profoundly matured. For centuries, our instinct was to treat the human body like a dirty surface that needed harsh, abrasive cleaning and chemical sterilization.
Just scorched earth.
Exactly. But true health science, as we see with microbiome modulation and biomimetic minerals, is entirely about harmony. It's about working with our natural remineralization cycles and our bacterial ecosystems rather than fighting blindly against them.
It's about working with the body's natural genius, not trying to fight it. Which leaves us with a pretty provocative thought to chew on. If bioactive glass can already sit on our teeth for 12 hours, quietly waiting to release minerals perfectly timed to the acidic coffee we drink, what might scientists uncover next? Could the mundane, twice-a-day chore of brushing your teeth be entirely replaced in our lifetime by an invisible, smart mineral shield we only need to apply once a month?
It certainly makes you wonder what the future of that autopilot morning routine will actually look like.
Something to think about tonight, when you are standing at the sink, staring in the mirror, and foaming up your mouth. Thank you for joining us in the Deep Dive Lab. Be sure to follow and subscribe for more fascinating science stories. We'll see you next time.